Okay, there is a blank page in your digital notebook for this topic if you prefer to type, but I know most of you are probably going to write. So I'm going to give you a second to grab something to write with. And this is the very last set of notes, actually, that we are taking for like 2 weeks. Yay, because after today, it's literally just practice, then more practice, then more practice over all the different equations we've learned about. So last day of notes, yay. So either type this into your digital notebook or grab a piece of paper. You are quietly getting something out to write with. I'm going to wait a second. All right, so I'm going to be the first to tell you. Normally, I'm the type that's like, yes, we use math in real life all the time. This particular topic, oh my goodness, this particular topic is one that I kind of respectfully disagree. It's not necessarily the most important thing. There are a lot of scientists who would disagree, okay? But the reality of the situation is it shows up on tons of like your ACT, your SAT, the old dead white dudes who kind of have a tendency to make those tests think that this is a really important topic. So while you are writing the learning target, I'm going to show you really quickly. Don't write what's in green here. Okay, just write the example number and the learning target. But I'm using the green to kind of prove the point of like what this is supposed to do. Okay, so our first example in a moment is going to involve the area of a rectangle formula. And we should remember from middle school that to find the area of a rectangle, you do area equals base times height, right? So, or when you're in middle school, some teachers call it length times width, all means the same thing. Okay, so we know we find the area of a rectangle by doing base times height. So again, the stuff in green, you don't need to write down. I'm just kind of using it as an example. And this is like true story, real life stuff. My next door neighbors have these really extremely annoying Chihuahua dogs, 2 of them to be exact. And they're really super annoying because literally all they do is like all the time. Like you. Super annoying. Kind of. You know, somebody did say that I would be a Chihuahua or a pit bull if I were actually a dog. But anyway. That was me. I said you. Oh, was that you? Okay. Somebody also said a pit bull some other time. Okay. All right. So they legit, because we live in the Highlands where we live in the Highlands where we have like really tiny yards for everybody that's ever been there. I don't live on like the side of the Highlands that are like the mansions or whatever, just the normal houses. So, you know, our yards are like this big and they don't have fences because we got like alleys that run through the back and stuff. So my next door neighbors, like true story, have this like really cheesy, like fenced in thing for those 2 annoying dogs. And they have like this little stupid umbrella and a couple dog houses that it like sits under and all this stuff. And all they do is bark all the time and get on my nerves. So thank goodness we at least have a fence, but they're very loud. So let's say, for example, that my neighbors decided they want to redo that little fenced in area, okay? And we know that it is a rectangular shape in real life. It actually is. And so if they know the area, like they want to give their dogs, I should have made these different units because I wasn't thinking about my real life example at the time. Instead of 50 centimeters, obviously that wouldn't be a lot of room even for Chihuahuas. Let's say they want to give them 50 feet. And again, you don't need to write this in green. I'm just kind of showing you like kind of what this is for. So don't write the green. So they are trying to figure out exactly how much fence they need. They know they want to do an area of 50 square feet for their little stupid dogs to run around in. And they know the width of the rectangle would be 5, okay? So using the formula, area equals base times height, how would they figure out, if they want it to be 5 feet wide, how would they figure out how much length they need to buy for the side of it if they want the area to be 50? Yeah, exactly. They would just do 50 divided by 5, right? So I personally feel like this is a really easy problem to do just by saying, all right, 50, again, don't write this, what's in green, 50 is equal to 5 times h, divide both sides by 5. I feel like problem solved, that's a very easy problem to do, okay? So don't write down the green stuff. Yeah, don't write down any of this that I just wrote down, just the example and the equations. So I personally feel like if you're good at solving equations, all you got to do is put in the information you've got and solve. However, there are some people and that is the actual learning target for today. There are some people who believe you should actually rearrange the formula first in order to solve for the variable that you want to solve for. And let me show you what I mean by that. So now we're finally at example number 1. And what the directions would say in a problem like this is instead of saying what's the height, it would say solve for h. Okay? That's what the directions would say. So solve for h means isolate h. Okay? So this is exactly what the problem would look like. It would give you a formula, and then it would say solve for h. A lot of people, especially scientists, think, because, you know, in science you use a lot of formulas, don't you? So a lot of scientists think, oh, if you want the h, don't put the numbers in there and then solve. Instead, rearrange the formula first to get the variable that you want to solve for. And here's what I mean by that. So you need to ask yourself the question, what operation is on the same side with the h? What is the operation that is on that side? Mikey already said it. You stole my thunder. That's multiplication, right? Because the base is sitting next to the height. How do you cancel out multiplying by? Dividing. Exactly. So cancel multiplication with division. Okay? And the same way that you would cancel out a number by dividing both sides by that number, guess what? You divide a variable by just dividing both sides by that variable. So the way that Peyton just told me to solve for h by doing 50 divided by the base, we're really doing the same thing before we put the numbers in there. It's like rearranging the formula to get the variable that you're interested in. Okay? Now, obviously, we don't know in this problem what a and b are. So all you're going to do is literally, you can't do a divided by b and get a number because you don't know what those numbers are. So you're literally just going to leave it as a over b is equal to h. So all you have done is taken the formula and rearranged it. So you're done, and the reason you're done is because it told you to solve for h, and h is isolated. So you're really not doing anything that you don't already know how to do, okay? You're still just canceling stuff out by doing inverses, by doing opposites, but you're doing it with variables instead of numbers. So, and again, a lot of scientists use this. Like if you use a lot of formulas that have a bunch of complicated values in it, what they'll do is say, oh, I don't want to know the velocity, I want to know the mass of whatever formula. So they like rearrange the formula to solve for whatever variable they're trying to figure out. The concept is still exactly the same. It's really not that challenging. You're not doing anything you haven't already done a million times before. You're just doing inverse operations with variables instead of numbers. That is actually what makes this a literal equation. See that yellow? Equations that are mostly or all variables. So again, science would be the place you would see this typically because you do have a million formulas to know for science, and they're just asking you to rearrange it for the variable you're interested in. So that one was pretty basic, right? We just took it, divide both sides by b. Anybody got any? Is it okay if I scroll over to example number 2? Anybody not okay with me going to example number 2? We'll go that way. Okay. So example number 2, go ahead and write this down. So this time, it's the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. Remember how you find the perimeter of a rectangle? You add up all the sides. So you would just take your length and multiply it by 2, take your width, multiply it by 2, add those together, right? What if you were somebody only interested in the width? What if you had all the other information? You just wanted to find the width of that rectangle. You already had the perimeter. You already had the length. Personally, I would just take the perimeter and the length and just put the numbers in there and solve for W. But again, there are other people who think, no, you should rearrange it beforehand. So that, friends, is what we're going to do. Because again, the old dead white guys who invented a lot of these tests and stuff think it's important. So you still need to ask yourself exactly the same question. You need to ask yourself, except this time there's more than one operation, right? What is with the variable that needs to go away? What's over there with the variable? What's on the same side as the variable? We've got that 2L and we've got the 2, right? Because they're on the same side of the equal sign. So we've got to get the W by itself. It honest and truly doesn't matter whether you get rid of the 2L or whether you get rid of the 2 first. My personal opinion, for what it's worth, is that it's easier to get rid of the 2L. So what would I do if I want to take away that 2L from the right side? I'm taking away. What does take away mean? Subtraction, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to cancel. Sorry, that keeps moving around.
Dr. Q?
Yes, sir.
Could you do L squared plus W squared?
Squared, no, because that's different from 2 times. Good question, though. Not quite the same thing. So we're going to cancel that 2L with a minus 2L to start. Okay, so what's the opposite of a 2L? I'm going to do a minus 2L. Even though it's an equation that doesn't have a bunch of numbers and it has very few, all of the rules are still exactly the same. If you take away 2L from the right side of the equal sign, you have to do what? Take it away from the other side too. Correct. So you still need to do 2L on both sides. This is typically the part when I get a whole bunch of hands in the air and somebody says to me for good reason, wait a minute, you've got a P and a minus 2L. You can't put those together. And you're right, you can't. Okay? If I were you, I would write myself a little note over here to the side. Don't combine I'm not going to combine the P and the minus 2L because they're not like terms. So you can't combine them. So what you're going to have to do is just leave them just like this. You'll do P minus 2L. You're just going to leave them as 2 separate terms. You can't combine a P and a 2L, so you're just going to have to leave them as 2 separate terms. And now that we've gotten rid of the 2L, I still need to bring down that 2W, right? So how am I going to cancel out that 2? That 2 is sitting there next to the W. What is that? What operation does that imply? Multiplication. How do I cancel multiplication? Division. So you have a choice about how you want to write dividing by 2. On this side, there's only one way to do it. Okay? Put a 2 underneath there. Those 2's cancel. That's going to leave you with the W. What you do on one side, you still need to do on the other side. So you've heard me said it 1,000 times because it's if you divide one thing, you've got to divide everything. So this method is technically correct. Don't write what I'm writing right this second, but technically this is correct if you want to divide everything by 2 and do it that way. But typically what most math teachers are going to do is make it one giant fraction bar across the bottom. Okay? Is my W isolated now? Do I have my W by itself? Yep. Okay, so this is isolated. So I know that I'm done because I've rearranged the formula so that the W is isolated. So I'm just going to bring down the rest of it. So P minus 2L over 2. So you're not doing anything you don't already know how to do. You're canceling stuff out. It's just that you don't have numbers. You're canceling out letters, variables, instead of numbers.
So we don't get numbers for these problems.
So in real life, that's again one of those reasons that I'm kind of like, these are kind of stupid. Once we get to graphing lines, there is going to be actually a very good reason to know how to do this. I can't offer you a great reason right now, to be honest. This is one of those where you're just going to have to trust me. And I'll be like, hey, there really is a use for this later. Anybody still doing number 2? Is it okay if I go to number 3?
All math teachers say that.
What?
And it's gonna
Trust
be
me?
useful later. Trust me. Well, yeah, trust me. So it has
Just trust
time
me.
to have-
All right. So y'all take a minute. Look at number 3. I'm going to shut up for a second. If you want to just put it on your whiteboard or whatever before you actually write it down, that's cool. Take a good, educated guess about what you think you're going to do to get y isolated. It says solve for y. That means you need to get rid of everything that is over there with the y. Think about how you would do that. Nothing needs to be left over here except the y. I'm going to give you a minute. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I want you to take your best educated guess first.
Jesus, that's a
I feel like it's probably easier to cancel out the 2x first, but that's just my opinion. So that's what I'm going to do because, you know, that's my opinion. So 2x with a minus 2x. So I'm going to do minus 2x. And just like any equation on the planet, if you take 2x's from one side, you have to take it away from the other, even though you don't have any like terms over there. Why did I just write that? What did I just do incorrectly? Oh, that's okay. It's wrong. Why is it wrong? Thank you. I can't subtract 2x's from 4. I still got to get them over on the same side of the equal sign, but you cannot put a 4 and a 2x together. So remember, don't combine them. Just write it as 2 separate terms. So now that I got rid of the 2x, I'm going to bring down that 3y. And what is the 3 doing sitting there next to the y? What does that mean? Multiplication. How do I cancel out multiplication? Division. So I personally think the easiest thing is to do it, and this is how you'll see most teachers do it. You'll make it like a big fraction kind of over to the side. So now we have our y is isolated, which is what we needed. The y is now by itself, and the rest of it is just going to be 4 minus 2x over 3. It is a fraction or a giant division problem, depending on how you look at it. I'm not going to be too picky about like kind of what this looks like for right now. Eventually there will be a time to be picky, but right now is not that time while we're just learning how to do these. So I'm probably right because I've got the y isolated. And it's always a good idea to go back and make sure that, so I started off with a 2x, I ended up with a 2x, started off with a 3, ended with a 3. Make sure you didn't forget and write something down. Okay, we're going to do one more all together, and then I'll show you. I'm literally shutting up with notes for the next 2 weeks. Yay. Yes, it's okay. I know it's not fun. It's necessary, but it's not fun. All right. Everybody done with number 3? Last one for us to do together. Okay. All right. Y'all get a Post-it note up there, baby. Okay, so that is a z, a x, and a y. Take your best guess what you think you would do to get that x by itself. I'm going to shut up for a minute and then give you the answer in a minute. Okay, what do I got to do? Hey, somebody's getting ready to tell me what he thinks we need to do. Okay.
You multiply the y on both sides.
He said it's a southern.
All right, do you mean, wait, what am I dividing by?
Actually, no, multiply to u.
I do. Okay. Okay. So that means dividing by u. We were just told correctly, for anybody that missed that, we're going to cancel out dividing by u, and we're going to do that by multiplying by u. So those two u's are going to cancel each other out. You don't need to do u times x or u times y because those u's canceled. Okay? So what is still left on the right-hand side? We still got the x plus y. Laws of equations still hold true. If I multiply the right-hand side by u, I need to
To the lefter.
multiply the left-hand side by u as well. Okay? Now, even though they're not like terms, you need like terms to add and subtract. You don't need like terms to multiply and divide. So you're actually just going to take this u and this z and write them next to each other. Okay? Because you can multiply stuff because all you got to do is sit it next to each other. Last but not least, what is still keeping that x from being isolated?
The Y.
The y. How am I going to get rid of that y?
Subtract it.
Subtract it. Okay, because that's the opposite. That's the opposite of plus y. Now, u, z, and y are about as far away from like terms as you can get. So you can't put u, z, and y together. So you're going to have to leave it as u, z, minus y. And then now, the x is by itself. X has been isolated like we were asked to do up here. So we know that we are probably correct.